The next speaker is Stewart, New York County Lawyers Association.
Good afternoon. I'm Stewart. I'm a partner in the law firm of Arnold & Porter, and I'm appearing here as president of the New York County Lawyers Association. Members of the Special Commission on Judicial Compensation, I appreciate the opportunity to be addressing you on behalf of the more than 9,000 members of NYCLA, and we want to thank you for the important work that this commission is doing. Given that many of the points that I made in the written testimony that will become part of the record have already been made here, I'm not going to obviously be reading the entirety of my testimony, just want to deal with a few points. NYCLA fully supports the July 11 submission made by the Office of Court Administration to this commission. In NYCLA's view, the OCA submission is a persuasive and comprehensive compendium of data that amply supports an immediate increase in judicial salaries to a level of at least $190,000. NYCLA made its own submission on July 12, and as our submission points out, NYCLA has previously called for increased judicial compensation back in April of 2005, long before this crisis reached its current level of severity. The NYCLA Board of Directors, in a resolution calling for increased judicial compensation, described the judicial pay situation as, quote, demoralizing, disrespectful, and discouraging, as is the fact that other state employees have received raises while state judges and justices have not. That was more than 6 years ago. And in 2009, NYCLA wrote an amicus brief in the Larrabee case in the Court of Appeals, the opinion that led to the creation of this commission as the remedy to address the separation of powers concerns inherent in the prior process of setting judicial salaries. In that amicus brief, NYCLA wrote, quote, the failure of the legislature to provide adequate judicial pay has now reached crisis proportions, threatening the administration of justice in New York and undermining public confidence in the legal system. That was 2 years ago. Members of the commission, the situation is even worse today than it was when NYCLA took those earlier positions. We are all too familiar with the disturbing litany of statistics on the falling judicial pay. In short, for the last 12 and a half years, no other group of judges, and perhaps I submit, no other large group of workers in the American economy has been treated as unfairly as New York State judges have been. The salary level that NYCLA recommends would do no more than give judges the purchasing power in the bottom fifth of all states in the United States, but better than the 50th position that they now occupy. Indeed, a salary at the $190,000 to $196,000 level that NYCLA recommends would place judges' salaries at only the level of junior and mid-level associates at large law firms in Manhattan, where NYCLA is based. Surely our judges dedicated themselves to a career in public service, and we are very obligated to them for having done that. They do not expect to be compensated at the levels of private sector attorneys. We've heard those statements being made, and I believe them, and they're true. They do expect, however, that the state will protect the integrity of their position and provide a salary commensurate with the solemn duties that a judgeship entails. In the words of Teddy Roosevelt over a century ago, it is not befitting the dignity of the nation that its most honored public servants should be paid sums so small compared to what they would earn in private life that the performance of public service by them implies an exceedingly heavy pecuniary sacrifice. NYCLA submits that for the judiciary to maintain its high level of expertise and qualifications, our state must, even in a period of declining resources, make the relatively modest investment, and that's a term I'm going to come back to in a minute, an investment necessary to maintain a judiciary of the highest quality and competence. A continuation of low judicial pay will render it difficult to attract judges from the ranks of experienced private practitioners. With burgeoning dockets replete with complex commercial cases, New York courts cannot function without the demonstrated wisdom, skill, and experiences of judges from diverse backgrounds, including from the private sector. NYCLA is acutely aware that it is calling for judicial salaries that far outstrip the salary of the average American. Obviously, I sat here and I heard the state budget director talk about the fiscal crisis in the state of New York that's led to draconian budget cutting and belt tightening, and we certainly don't want to trivialize the amount of money at stake. However, as has been noted in the context of the overall state budget, or even the budget for the judiciary itself, the amount of money necessary to improve judicial salaries to where they should be is relatively small. And as I noted earlier, this is really an investment that has to be made. And what better investment to make than in the asset of the New York judiciary, which is a crown jewel. This is a business proposition. This not only makes sense, it's not only the right thing to do, but it's the right thing to do for business. If I had an opportunity to sit down with Governor Cuomo, I would try to convince him, because I think it's true. If you have a high-quality judiciary, you have businesses that come to New York, you have people that want to have their disputes heard in New York, and that generates income for the state. Not only does it increase our prestige, but it also generates income. Litigation generates income. Lawsuits generate income. There are lawyers who pay taxes. There are court reporters, depositions, document production services. It generates a lot of money for the economy. And should we have a judiciary where people, if this commission doesn't act in the range that NYCLA believes it should act, you'd have people fleeing. And I heard the last speaker, and I have no doubt there are persons who are waiting for this to happen. If that doesn't happen and there's a mass exodus from the bench, what does that mean for me, the CEO of the company or the general counsel of a company? Do I want to have my business here, or do I want to have my disputes heard here? That's going to affect the fisc, that's going to affect the economy, and that's something I believe that the budget director didn't take into account in his presentation. In closing, the size of the judicial pay increase that NYCLA has recommended reflects nothing more than the long period of time that has elapsed. As your predecessors on the 1998 Pay Commission wrote, and I'm quoting, the Commission recognized that considered in isolation, the recommended increase is substantial. Understood in context, however, the increase is fully warranted and the Commission believes necessary. The size of the recommended increase is consistent with the history of judicial salaries in this state, a history of long periods of no increases, interspersed with a few double-digit catch-up increases. Those increases, however, never made up for the economic loss suffered during the long periods between increases. NYCLA again expresses its appreciation, not only for its opportunity to submit testimony, but also for the important work that the Commission is doing. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if there were any.
Any questions? Okay. You referred generically to public service as the context in which to think about judicial pay increases. I just wondered whether you thought we should think differently about the judges' pay, given that they are an independent and a co-equal branch of government.
Yes, certainly the fact that they are an independent and co-equal branch of government, it seems to me, means they shouldn't be treated like the average state employee, and that's another factor that I think distinguishes some of what the budget director was speaking about. But certainly someone that goes into a career in public service as a judge with all the prestige and importance of that position, I think should be taken into account that they are distinguished from other public servants. They are a public servant of a unique character, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.